Happy New Year's, Blue Jay fans and baseball fans in general, but especially all the Blue Jay fans that support us here at Jays from the Couch. I am the duly appointed Shadow General Manager of your Toronto Blue Jays, the Fekless Wonder, Steve Fek. Thanks for joining me here for the first episode of 2023 in the On Fek Circle. We've got a lot of fun for you a little bit later on in the episode. I do want to remind you that this show, of course, is brought to you by JFtC.com. You should be checking JFtC.com every day for, it's not necessarily breaking news, but we actually break down the news so it makes sense and you understand why a move should be popular, shouldn't be popular. We mix in the analytics. We mix in just pure Blue Jays fandom. So please do check into JaysFromTheCouch.com on a daily basis. Don't forget, as we get closer to the season, we'll start having some predictions. We'll have Ryan Mueller, once the minor league season begins, start putting out his daily Blue Jays farm system reports. So it should be part of your daily routine there. Of course, here on the Jays from the Couch Facebook page, on our Twitter account, and at our YouTube channel, you can tune into not only this program, but you can also tune into the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. We're just zooming through the episodes well past 300 now at this point. Remember, if you're a 300 hitter or better, you're a Hall of Fame, and the Jason McCouch radio podcast hosted by Shaun Doyle is certainly a candidate for the Hall of Fame as far as podcasts go. He is always generous, inviting myself and my fellow colleague Karen Suter, who is the hostess with the mostest, on Sunny Side of the Dome. That comes up on Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The primary podcast is Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you're watching live, you know now that the On Fek Circle is 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesdays. But let's say you don't drop everything just to listen to us live. You can always catch it, on the Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, in the archives. Or if you're a podcast person, like to listen to it in the car or whatever it is, just download it. Apple, Stitcher, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's available now on Amazon Music. I know I've seen it up there. I really highly recommend that you download it. It's good for your drive. No, I would download Sunny Side of the Dome and the primary podcast first. I think if you would listen to this in the car, you may really have some dark thoughts as you're behind the wheel and wondering whether you should really hit that accelerator or not. So maybe save me for when you're home in a safe thing. Make sure all the knives, you're not in the tub, far away before you listen to this show here. Before I dive into the show, I do want to throw out a ceremonial first pitch. Please do, if you think you would really enjoy helping us cover the Blue Jays and talk about it both in writing or in a podcast form, please do join the JFtC team. How do you do that? Simple email, info@jaysfromthecouch.com. It goes directly to our senior editor and founder, Shaun Doyle. He'll reach out to you. It doesn't matter really what your talent is. And even if you don't think you have talent, if you feel that you could lend something to the conversation, and that's what Jays from the Couch is all about, that's what you do. Don't worry about having a writing degree or having broadcast experience or whatever it would be. Just reach out to us, info@jaysfromthecouch.com. Help us inform Blue Jay fans the right way, because there's a lot of sites out there that are just in it for themselves and for the views. So if you really want in-depth quality coverage of your Blue Jays, do reach out, info@jaysfromthecouch.com. I also want to remind you, as always, it is a new year. So it is time to think about another tax-deductible donation to the Jays from the Couch versus ALS campaign to help ALS Canada, help families, help people that have been stricken with the disease, help fund research, help find medicines that can help living with the disease. Unfortunately, there is no cure at this point, but you can help families in real time by making a tax-deductible donation. You can go right there on our website, JaysFromTheCouch.com, scroll yourself down. You'll see where you can make the direct, secure tax-deductible donation directly to ALS Canada. And the money you're going to donate is going to help even with everyday things, like simple things like rides to appointments or physical rehab appointments, wheelchairs, helping people modify their homes. It's not just research and science, it's actual practical day-to-day things that families and certainly the patients need help with. It is just a horrendous disease. And I'm sure you've heard by now, if you didn't watch the National Football League game uh, last night, you saw a player, in his prime, literally collapse and go into cardiac arrest, on the field. Help was there. They resuscitate him. Sure, he's in critical condition. It's still touch and go. But in essence, those efforts could allow a player like Damar Hamlin, from just not very far from my home here in Pittsburgh, recover and live a normal life, or as normal as possible. If you're stricken with ALS, you can live a productive and I would say happy life, but it's limited. That no matter what goes on at this particular point, eventually that clock is going to tick. And there's going to be no more time on the clock for you. So help us, help ALS Canada fight this dreaded disease. And if you like to get some swag, if you like to have some bang for your buck, go to our Redbubble shop, again, at JFtC.com. Scroll down. You've got all kind of merchandise that you can get. Terrific Jason from the Couch and Jason from the Couch radio podcast merchandise. Each of the shows, the On Fek Circle. If you look over my shoulder, you can see an On Fek Circle show logo. You get it as a poster, as a clock, as a pillow, and T-shirts. Karen Suter's Sunny Side of the Dome, terrific logo on a shirt. It's really, really sharp. But again, all of these things are available in a variety of different things. 100% of the profits go directly to ALS Canada to help eliminate this disease from the face of the earth. It's only $1 at a time. We were talking about Damar Hamlin, his little charity that's over in 24 hours has raised $4.75 million. People have rushed to kind of do that. I would love to see that kind of support coming from Blue Jay fans and Jason from the Couch fans to get as much money into the hands of ALS Canada so that can then trickle down directly to the patients and the families who have to deal with ALS on a daily basis. I have a quick Fekless Wonder before we get to the Shadow GM report, and it's something that's really been bothering me for several weeks now. I wonder, why has there been no uproar among Blue Jay fans over the fact that for the modern era committee that elected former Blue Jay Fred McGriff, thank God he is finally in. Okay, I mean, basically, yes, he played a lot of different places. He played in Atlanta, and he played in San Diego, and he played in Tampa, his hometown team in Tampa. But he was a Blue Jay. Okay, he finally got into the Hall of Fame. They cut away, all of the old timer type stuff about why he shouldn't be in there. Oh, he didn't hit enough home runs. But he was consistent. Thank God he got into the Hall of Fame. And for once, analytics actually is useful in a baseball conversation, because if you can use analytics to help advance the case and the cause of something like Fred McGriff for the Hall of Fame, then okay. Maybe we should only use analytics for Hall of Fame discussions, and we can just throw them out the window for everything else. But that same committee completely ignored, didn't even bring our name as a finalist, probably the best Blue Jay of all time, and that's Dave Stieb. Now, I understand some of you that are younger, that maybe were born after the World Series years in the early 90s, have no idea about Dave Stieb. I mean, in essence, he came up in his inaugural season of the Blue Jays in 1977. Didn't pitch necessarily very well or very long. He went down to the minors, came back up in 79. And in essence, you could put the ball in his hand and you knew you were going to get quality innings for 7, 8 innings every time he went out there. He would He had a toughness, a competitiveness, even a mean streak, if you will. Sometimes early in his career, it got channeled against his teammates. But in essence, nobody wanted to face Dave Steve. And whether you're an analytics darling or whether you're just someone likes to go back at Baseball Reference and look at all of the dark type and things like that, Dave Steve was the greatest pitcher of the 1980s. The greatest. Better than, Jack Morris. Dave Steve was a more consistent and a better pitcher and more valuable to his team than Jack Morris. He was a better pitcher throughout the entire decade than Nolan Ryan. Roger Clemens came up in 84. He was a better pitcher from 84 to 89 than Roger Clemens was. And we're talking about quality players, quality pitchers. Some of them already Hall of Famers. If Clemens wasn't such a dope with the steroids, he would be a Hall of Fame pitcher as well. Dave Steve was better than them all. Bill James had a report that stated that picking like a prime 5-year thing of anybody's career, Dave Steve's 5-year prime, 83 to 87, was better than the hallowed 5-year stint that Sandy Koufax had in the early and mid 60s. Nobody ever doubts Sandy Koufax was a better pitcher. Dave Steve, as far as actual impact and outcome in real games, had a larger impact than Sandy Koufax. So I think Blue Jay fans need to kind of get more riled up about Dave Steve. Now, it's going to be a couple of years now before they can come out and vote. But there's another player that also should be getting consideration. He should never have fallen off the ballot in the first place, and that's Carlos Delgado. So now just about everybody that would be watching this show would have watched Carlos Delgado play, or certainly it would be more familiar as far as family members, maybe only a generation back, people would tell you how great Carlos Delgado is. Our senior editor, Shaun Doyle, will probably, genuflect every time he says Carlos Delgado. He was a special player. Carlos Delgado idolized and embraced the community action part of the great Roberto Clemente's career. He stood up. He got arrested for trying to defend the residents of Vieques, which is an island off of the east coast of Puerto Rico, so that the U.S. military would no longer be doing live shell tests on this island where there were inhabitants, where there was a chance that something could go astray and kill innocent civilians. He poured money into education in Puerto Rico. And he was always active in charities in Toronto and in his stops in New York and in Miami. So Carlos Delgado was probably in the top 5 as far as most feared hitters during his time as a Blue Jay. Why is nobody clamoring when Carlos Delgado gets no consideration? So Blue Jay fans need to take a look at their history a little bit more. Fred McGriff is going to bring some of this out as we get closer and closer to the August day when he gets enshrined in the Hall of Fame. But seriously, there are players that wore a Blue Jays uniform. And I would even argue, though I think it's borderline at best, that the jersey I have right now, you can't see it, it's a Joe Carter jersey. Joe Carter hit 100 RBIs for 6 consecutive years. 6 years of 100 RBIs. Never really got above 3%. So Blue Jay fans need to rally around and get some of these retired players. I know Roy Halladay is in. Roberto Alomar, Paul Molitor only played toward the end of his career, here. It's time for Blue Jay fans to get more serious about this Hall of Fame discussion. Okay, now it's time for the Shadow GM report. And based on the reaction to a lot of the transactions that have occurred so far in the off season, I think a lot of you would think that Ross Atkins is either consulting a psychic, or he's using a Ouija board, or he's flipping coins to decide what he's going to do. Now, that might be a little bit rough. But as the Shadow GM, I thought it would be fun for us here on the show to kind of take a similar approach. But rather than a tarot reading or sitting there and waiting and going with the Ouija board, I thought we would kind of revive a segment that we did last off season, and that is try to read the tea leaves, or if you will, the fortune cookies. We're going to go back to the fortune cookies to see what should be going on with the Blue Jays, or what might be in store for the Blue Jays here in 2023. It should be noted that when we put together the graphic for the show, it showed Ross Atkins sitting there in front of a microphone. It was kind of like this, with a fortune cookie in his hand. There you go. You see it up on the screen for those of you watching on YouTube. I would have to think, though, that Ross, when he goes to order Chinese food, he's probably ordering things like plain white rice or chicken wings. Like, he's not actually getting into the actual, meat and potatoes of Chinese cuisine. He's just going for something bland and something simple, something that's going to be filling, seemingly, but you're going to be left hungry about an hour later. So let's reach in here. Notice it is a clear container here we're pulling this out from. I don't want you to think I set this up. I am flying without a net here, which even when I'm writing things down, I'm kind of flying without a net here, because you never know. I kind of have baseball Tourette's. You really never know what's going to come out of my mouth while we're doing this. Let's see what the cookies of fate have in hand for us here with this Blue Jay season. And the first fortune is: impose not a burden on others which you cannot bear yourself. I can't think of a better way to sum up the Ross Atkins regime than this fortune cookie, because he is imposing a burden on the Blue Jay fans. And to a certain degree, some of, especially from the pitching standpoint, the young prospects coming up, he thinks that he knows. He doesn't need fortune cookies or Ouija boards or tea leaves. He thinks he knows what's going to happen because he's smarter than everybody else. But the fact is when things go wrong, he's not looking to bear that burden and saying, look, it's on me. Sure, he may utter those words, but down deep, it's always going to be something else. It's going to be not being able to play home games for a year and a half. It's going to be, Charlie Montoyo not executing the plan that he lays out exactly the way it is. It's undervaluing players especially players that he would bring in. I mean, again, in 2020, 2019, 2021, he would claim players and let them go and make them available. Then he would reclaim them again. I mean, the famous Daniel Vogelback, he claimed them. They really needed that extra bat that could have made a big, big difference in that season. But a week later, it's like, oh, no, we're going to claim somebody else. We're going to go a different direction. And then Vogelback went to Milwaukee and basically helped lead them to a playoff berth. It's the whole Atkins innings diet approach to the pitching staff. It's the pitcher's fault for not executing what his computer or what his Wizard of Oz approach is to trying to figure out how to do things. It's never his fault. Somehow he's deflecting something always off. So it's an interesting thing there that, don't impose a burden. He already has. So that's why people are getting angry. If you can get Sunny Side of the Dome's Karen Suter upset to the point of not only tears, but of actually wishing harm upon you. Okay, you're imposing a burden. There is no more loyal Blue Jay fan on this planet than Karen Suter. And if she had a chance and a gun was nearby, she's too nice to actually shoot him. But I guarantee you, those thoughts are going to go through her head after what he has done in this offseason. But an interesting start here to our fortune cookie thing. We're going to shake some more up here, see what we got. I'll dig a little deeper here. Again, if you have any comments, please do. If you're watching live on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, put in your comments. If you're watching this after the fact, you can always reach out to me on Twitter at Fekless Wonder. You can send an email, fecklesswonder@jasonthecouch.com. Or if you want to see me fired, you can just go to info@jasonthecouch.com, and it goes directly to our editor, Shaun Doyle. And you could probably make a pretty good case in a lot of weeks, and then I should have my show taken away. But okay, so let's see what else now. Okay, as the Shadow GM, and there's Dulcimeris. I'm watching live. Joined late. Well, thank you, Dulcimeris. You rarely miss any of our shows, whether it be the primary podcast on Mondays, the On Fek Circle, Karen's Sunny Side of the Dome on Thursdays. We really appreciate your loyalty. You always have great insights, even when you and I don't necessarily agree on the approaches. I mean, you always can back up your points, and you have to tip your hat to someone like yourself, Dulcimeris, when they can back up their points and not just saying stuff and putting it up there. Okay, so we do appreciate you tuning in here. We'll see if maybe you have some fortunes that we can share going forward here. If at first you do succeed, try something harder. I think this is a great fortune for the core Blue Jay stars, especially the younger ones. So with Vladdy, with Bo, with Alek Manoah. And I'll throw in Jordan Romano too, as an afterthought here. If at first you do succeed, all of those players have succeeded. They've wildly succeeded. Yes, they've had their ups and downs. It took Vladdy a while to really blossom into the superstar that he is. Bo Bichette has had some defensive inconsistencies. He'll swing at anything. I mean, you'd swear to God there's a swarm of locusts coming in that he's trying to clear the field of, the way he swings at some pitches sometimes, but he's great. Alek Manoah. Alek Manoah. Yeah, he is going to be so special for this team going forward. And Jordan Romano, Canadian boy made good. They've all had great moments, but I think they know that they can be more consistent and can be even better. I think Vladdy is going to be closer to that 2021 MVP season. Yeah, I know Shohei Ohtani got the MVP. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was the MVP in 2021. He just wasn't flashy enough, okay, and he wasn't playing out next to Disneyland, so he didn't get the attention that he truly deserved. I think he's going to be closer to that form than some of the inconsistent things that he had last year, though certainly defensively, he was all-world. Forget just Gold Glove. He was all-world defensively. Bo Bichette just keeps getting better. I would love to see him accept a move to second base if the Jays can bring in a shortstop. But still, when you have talent like that, we talked on the podcast a little bit last night. I had said that I thought that Bo Bichette was a lot like Tony Fernandez in that he's almost too aggressive. He's so talented, he can make some of the tougher plays. It's just sometimes he just either loses focus or he's trying too hard to make a spectacular play, and that's where some of the errors, certainly from the throwing standpoint, occur. Alek Manoah, he's going to win a Cy Young. I don't know if it's going to be this year. Certainly, if the Blue Jays make it to the World Series, he's going to be the primary, not the primary, but a primary reason why. So I think he can do even better than what he's shown us already. And in his first year and a half, he has been spectacular. And Jordan Romano, every offseason, he seems to make a little bit of a tinker on things. And I think it's just going to help him set hitters up better. I think the one thing he doesn't do as well, now some of that is from the game calling as well, but ultimately Romano has the ultimate say as to what pitch he's going to throw. And I think sometimes he does not set up hitters as well as he could. I think that perhaps maybe he could start showing a third pitch, certainly early in the year, a little bit more. Not that he's going to rely on it. He's going to keep going back, to his two best pitches. But if people have in the back of their mind that he has a consistent third pitch, I think it could be a great thing. So that is a fortune I think we can look forward to here. Okay, and certainly if I was the shadow GM, if I was the real GM, not just the shadow GM, rather, I would go on that thing. If at first you do succeed, try something harder. And I think with those four, with those Mount Rushmore players, I think that they are going to try even harder. And if they all can maximize their talents, then the Blue Jays certainly have to be considered serious contenders for the World Series. We probably have time for one or two more. So I'm going to go right at the top here. Not to go much deeper. Again, if you're listening live on a podcast, this is probably not as much fun for you other than hearing me wrinkle, the fortune cookie wrappers there. But if you are watching live on our YouTube channel, if you're watching on Facebook or on our Twitter account, please do chip in with your questions if you think I've totally lost my mind. Somebody out there, some smart aleck out there is going to say, Fekless Wonder ran out of show ideas, so this is why he's doing it. No, I don't want everything to be so down deep and serious and deep dives and all that type of stuff. We can have fun making fun of the front office or questioning various things going on here. So why not fortune cookies? It's something that I think it's fun. So thanks for hanging in there with me on this one. Okay, this fortune says education is the ability to meet life's situation. Let's look at both the coaching staff and the front office there. John Schneider, when he took over for Charlie Montoyo, had already been observing what was working and what wasn't working and what needed to be done to reach certain players and hold players accountable. So from day one, he completely changed the approach and the culture of that team. And when I say culture, it's accountability. It's going out and not making the dumb base running mistakes and not, relying too much on what you think you can do, but actually do the things that you've proven that you can do. And Casey Candaele was great to support that. Pete Walker as a pitching coach, he is a pitching guru. He finds ways to have pitchers look inside themselves so they can harness their talents and their energies in a productive way. What he did with Yusei Kikuchi, turning him into a reliever late in the year, that could pay benefits going into this season since Ross Atkins doesn't seem to think that it's important to have more than one left-hander. Tiny Tim Meza is going to have like a permanent cast on his left arm eventually. He's just being overworked. He's the only left-hander that they seem to trust. Even though Matt Gage down at Buffalo, he's right there. It's not that far of a drive. I lived in Buffalo. I could make it to Toronto in an hour and 15 minutes. He could get there. But that's it. But again, the lessons learned here out of this fortune cookie, I don't think that Ross Atkins has learned anything from the mistakes that he made in 2020. And also, Maris has a question up here. Also being able to adapt. Great point. Teams will need to adapt to the shift ban and pitch clock. Those who adapt will succeed. Great point, Dulcimeris, on that. And again, that's a lesson learned. That's learning from your surroundings and your experiences there, and realize, okay, there may be mistakes. There's going to be a ball called, whatever. Things are going to happen, but learn from that. Don't try to overcompensate. Just adapt. That was a perfect way to put that, Dulcimeris, and I thank you for your comment. But Ross Atkins, again, he's not learned anything. He commits the same sins year in, year out, month in, month out. He fails to react when there's obvious holes. He waits to the deadline. He feels that his trade offers are the best. He feels his approaches are the best. So what lesson is, I don't need to learn anything. I'm smart. I've already studied. I went to an Ivy League school. I have my fancy $200 dress shirts and silk ties. I look the part. I speak the part. He has just not learned. And considering the number of really talented people that I respect in that front office, including Mark Shapiro, he's done a great job from the business end. That's where he's had his greatest successes. On the business end, late in his stay at Cleveland, and now here in Toronto. Tony LaCava is going to be a GM someday. I mean, if Tony LaCava would be offered the job and I would have to sit back and not become the new GM, just remain shadow GM, I can live with that with Tony LaCava. I would become almost moot because Tony LaCava is a great baseball man and would be making those changes. So we ran out of time. I wanted to do another one, but maybe, I've got plenty more of these fortune cookies. Maybe we'll break these out again later in the off season, maybe make it part of a podcast bit there. I certainly appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the On Fek Circle during the off season. It's every other Tuesday as far as live broadcast, 6 p.m. Eastern time. You can also tune into the main podcast, Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, the Jason from the Couch radio podcast, hosted by our senior editor and founder, Shaun Doyle. And coming up on Thursday, on the side of the door, how funny it's going to be with the way that Ross Atkins has been torturing our friend Karen Suter. But she's going to find a way to not only bring you great baseball insight, she's going to try to find hope. So again, you keep tuning in. Go to JaysFromTheCouch.com. Please do consider making a tax-deductible donation to Jays from the Couch versus ALS campaign. Go to our Redbubble shop. 100% of the profits of all merchandise goes to ALS Canada. I'll see you in 2 weeks live and also catch you on the podcast.